Hajun Park didn't like working the night shift at the research facility, but the extra pay helped him support his elderly mother. The empty halls and quiet rooms made him feel alone, but tonight something was different. As he walked through the underground corridor with his toolbox, he heard a sound that made him stop. It wasn't the usual sound of machines or air moving through vents. This sound was like singing, but sadder than any song he had ever heard. It came from somewhere inside the walls. Hajun looked at his watch. It was 2 a.m., and he was supposed to fix the broken heating system in Section B. But the strange sound pulled at him like a magnet. He walked closer to the wall, pressing his ear against the cold metal surface. The song grew clearer. It wasn't in any language he knew, but he could feel the pain in it. Hajun had worked at this facility for 15 years, but he had never heard anything like this before. He took out his maintenance tablet and checked the building plans. According to the screen, there was nothing behind this wall except solid concrete. But Hajun knew better. He could hear the empty space in the wall when he knocked on it. "Mr. Park," a sharp voice called out. "What are you doing here?" Hajun turned around quickly. Dr. Jaeyun Kang stood there in her white lab coat, her face showing both surprise and worry. She was one of the head scientists, and Hajun had always thought she was nice, even if she worked too hard. "The heating system in Section B is broken," Hajun said, holding up his toolbox. "I was just checking the walls because I heard a strange noise." Dr. Jaeyun's face changed. Her friendly smile disappeared. "This is a restricted area, Mr. Park. You should stay in the sections where you have permission to work." "But I heard." "It was probably just the ventilation system." She cut him off. "This is a very old building. It makes many strange sounds." Hajun knew she was lying. He had fixed ventilation systems for 30 years, and they never made sounds like that. But he nodded and smiled. "You're probably right, Doctor. I'll go fix the heating now." As he walked away, Hajun felt Dr. Jaeyun's eyes on his back. The song had stopped, but he could still feel it in his mind. There was something wrong in this building, something hidden behind the walls where he wasn't supposed to look. That night, Hajun couldn't sleep. He sat at his kitchen table with his maintenance tablet, looking at the building plans again and again. According to the plans, the research facility had 5 floors underground. But last winter, when he had fixed a broken pipe in the lowest level, he had seen elevator buttons for 6 floors. He opened his work notebook and started writing down other strange things he had noticed over the years. The extra power usage that didn't match any known systems, the restricted areas that kept growing larger, and now this song that couldn't exist. Hajun thought about his father, who had taught him that doing nothing when you see something wrong makes you part of the wrong. But he also thought about his mother, who needed her medicine, and his job that paid for it. The next morning, before his shift ended, Hajun went back to that wall. The song was gone, but he left a small mark with his pencil, something only a maintenance worker would notice. Then he made a promise to himself. He would find out what was behind that wall, no matter what it cost him. As he drove home in the early morning light, Hajun didn't know that his simple mark on the wall would change not just his life, but the lives of 2 entire species. He only knew that somewhere in that building, someone, or something, was crying out for help, and he was the only one who had stopped to listen. 3 days after hearing the strange song, Hajun found something that changed everything. He was fixing a broken light in one of the observation rooms when he noticed that the large mirror on the wall wasn't hanging straight. As a maintenance worker, crooked things bothered him. When he went to adjust it, his hand touched something unusual. The mirror moved. It wasn't just a mirror, it was a door. Hajun looked around the empty room. It was 3 a.m., and this part of the facility was always quiet at this time. His heart beat faster as he pulled at the mirror's edge. It swung open smoothly, showing a dark passage behind it. He took out his flashlight and stepped through. The passage was narrow, with pipes running along the ceiling. The air felt colder here. His footsteps echoed as he walked forward, guided by his flashlight beam. After about 50 steps, the passage opened into a small room. One wall was made entirely of dark glass. Hejun shined his light on it and realized it was another mirror, but this one he could see through from his side. It looked into a large white room. The white room was empty except for what looked like a bed and some strange machines. But then something moved, and Hejun had to put his hand over his mouth to stop himself from shouting. A girl sat in the corner, but she wasn't human. Her skin had a soft blue glow, like moonlight on water. Her hair looked like strings of starlight, floating as if she was underwater. She was beautiful, but she looked sad and tired. Hejun watched as two scientists entered the white room. One was Dr. Jae-yun. They talked while looking at tablets, treating the alien girl like she wasn't there. The girl's glow dimmed when they came closer. The subject's energy readings are lower today, Dr. Jae-yun said. We need to increase the testing frequency. The other scientist nodded. Captain Tadwan wants results by the end of the month. The military is getting impatient. Then we'll have to push harder, Dr. Jae-yun replied. The celestial biology is tough. They can handle it. Hejun felt sick. He had heard about the Celestials on the news. They were a peaceful species that had contacted Earth 5 years ago. The government said they were working together on scientific research. But this wasn't research. This was torture. The alien girl looked up suddenly, straight at the mirror. Even though Hejun knew she couldn't see him, her eyes seemed to find his. They were like deep pools of silver light. A tear ran down her cheek, glowing like a falling star. Then she started to sing. It was the same sad song Hejun had heard through the wall, but now he could see her face as she sang, and it broke his heart. She wasn't just making music. She was calling for help. Hejun wanted to break through the glass right then, but he knew that wouldn't help anyone. He needed to be smart about this. He took out his phone and recorded a short video of what he saw. Then he carefully marked the path back to the observation room in his notebook. As he left through the mirror door, Hejun made another promise to himself. He would find a way to help her. But first, he needed to learn more. Who was she? Why was she here? And most importantly, how could he get her out? Walking home that morning, Hejun looked up at the stars. Somewhere up there was her home. He thought about how scared and alone she must feel, but she wasn't alone anymore. Someone had heard her song, and that someone was going to do something about it. Hejun spent 3 nights planning how to talk to the alien girl. He learned the security guard schedules and found all the cameras in the halls. He also brought something special to work, an old tablet that couldn't connect to the internet. It would be safer that way. On the 4th night, Hejun waited until the midnight shift change. Then he slipped through the mirror door again, carrying his toolbox and the tablet. When he reached the hidden room, the alien girl was awake, sitting on her bed with her knees pulled up to her chest. Her soft blue glow lit up the corner where she sat. Hejun took a deep breath and knocked gently on the glass. The girl's head snapped up, her starlight hair floating around her face. She looked around confused. He knocked again. This time, she looked right at the mirror. She couldn't see him, but she knew someone was there. Hejun held up his tablet. On it, he had drawn a simple picture of a smiling face and written hello in big letters. The alien girl stood up slowly and walked to the mirror. Her feet didn't quite touch the ground. She floated a few inches above the floor. Up close, Hejun could see patterns like constellations moving under her skin. She touched the mirror with one glowing hand. Hejun put his hand against the glass opposite hers. Her eyes widened. He typed on his tablet, "My name is Hejun. I want to help." The girl studied the words. Then she raised her hand and drew glowing letters in the air. They stayed there, floating like neon signs. "I am Lyra." Hejun smiled. She could understand written English. He typed again. "Are you okay? Do they hurt you?" Lyra's glow dimmed. She wrote, "They take my light. It hurts. Want to go home. Hejun felt angry. He typed, I will help you get out, but need time to make plan. Safe plan. Dangerous for you. Lyra wrote. Her letters flickered like dying stars. Don't worry about me. Hejun typed. I'm old. Had good life. You are young. Lyra moved closer to the mirror. She wrote, Why help me? Hejun thought about this. He typed, Because it's right. No one should be in cage. Suddenly, lights flashed in the hallway outside Lyra's room. She quickly erased her glowing words and floated back to her corner. Hejun pressed himself against the wall next to the one-way mirror. Dr. Jae-yun walked in with 2 guards. The energy readings spiked in here, she said. Run a full scan of the room. Hejun held his breath. The guards checked every corner with strange devices. Dr. Jae-yun looked straight at the mirror, her eyes narrow. For a moment, Hejun thought she could see him. Nothing unusual, Doctor, one guard said. Maybe the instruments had an error. Dr. Jae-yun frowned. Double the security patrols for this section, and schedule another extraction session for tomorrow. After they left, Hejun waited 5 minutes before moving. Lyra floated to the mirror again. She wrote, Please be careful. Bad things happen to those who help. Hejun typed, We'll come back tomorrow. Stay strong. As he walked home in the early morning, Hejun thought about Lyra's warning. Yes, helping her was dangerous, but seeing her float there, writing words in light, made him sure about one thing. Some things were worth the risk. He touched his jacket pocket, where he had hidden a small device that recorded Dr. Jae-yun's words about the extraction session. Soon, he would have enough evidence to help Lyra. He just hoped he could do it before they took all her light away. Hejun arrived early for his night shift, his mind heavy with worry. He hadn't slept well since discovering Lyra. Each day, her glow grew dimmer. Last night, she could barely write 3 words before her light started flickering. As he walked through the facility's halls, he heard voices coming from Dr. Jae-yun's office. The door was slightly open. He slowed his steps and listened. The extraction process is working better than expected, Dr. Jae-yun said. The Celestial's light energy can power our new weapons for hours. A deep voice responded, Captain Tawon. Excellent. The military council will be pleased. How long until the subject's energy is fully harvested? At current rates, maybe 2 weeks. But Dr. Jae-yun paused. She won't survive the process. Acceptable losses, Captain Tawon said coldly. After all, it's just one alien, and with these weapons, Earth will be ready when the rest of them come. Hejun's hands shook as he quietly walked away. Now he understood everything. They weren't doing research. They were stealing Lyra's life force to make weapons, and they were going to kill her to do it. He went to his usual maintenance tasks, but his mind was racing. He had to tell Lyra. She needed to know the truth. But when he reached the hidden observation room that night, he found armed guards in the hallway. New security protocols, one guard told him. No maintenance work in this section without direct supervision. Hejun nodded and turned away. But he knew another way in. Last week, he had found old building plans showing a maintenance tunnel that connected to Lyra's room. It would be tight and dangerous, but he had no choice. After waiting for the guard shift change, Hejun climbed into a ventilation shaft. He crawled through the dusty space, using his phone's light to guide him. After 20 minutes, he reached the panel that opened into Lyra's room. When he looked through the vent slots, his heart nearly stopped. Lyra lay on her bed, her glow so faint he could barely see her. Machines surrounded her, each one connected to her body with glowing tubes. They were draining her light. Hejun couldn't wait any longer. He carefully removed the vent panel and slipped into the room. Lyra, he whispered. Her silver eyes opened slowly. When she saw him, a small smile lit up her face, making her glow just a bit brighter. She tried to write in the air, but no words appeared. Don't try to talk. Hejun said softly. He showed her his tablet. I know truth. They want your power for weapons. Will kill you. Must get you out now. Lyra's eyes filled with glowing tears. She wrote one word, using all her strength. How? Before Hejun could answer, they heard footsteps in the hallway. He quickly hid behind some equipment as Dr. Jae-yun walked in. She checked the machines, then looked at Lyra with what seemed like sadness. I'm sorry, Dr. Jae-yun whispered. I never wanted this, but they say it's necessary for Earth's protection. After she left, Hejun came out of hiding. He looked at Lyra, then at his tablet, where he had saved pictures of his mother, his home, his normal life. Then he deleted them all. He couldn't go back to that life now, not after what he had seen. He typed one last message to Lyra. Tomorrow night, be ready, getting you out or die trying. Lyra reached out her hand, touching his arm. A warm, gentle light passed from her to him. In that moment, Hejun understood that he wasn't just saving her life. He was saving humanity's soul. Hejun spent all day preparing for the escape. He gathered tools, made copies of security cards, and memorized guard schedules. But he knew he couldn't do this alone. He needed help, even if asking for it might get him killed. That evening, he waited outside the facility for Dr. Jae-yun. When she walked to her car, he stepped out of the shadows. Doctor, please don't call security, he said quickly. I know everything about Lyra, and I have proof. Dr. Jae-yun froze. How do you know that name? I've been talking to her. I know what the military is doing to her. I know you don't want this either. I heard you apologize to her last night. Dr. Jae-yun's face went pale. She looked around the empty parking lot. Get in my car. Now. Inside the car, Hejun showed her his tablet. He had recorded everything. The experiments, the weapon plans, and Lyra's suffering. Dr. Jae-yun watched with tears in her eyes. I was so excited when they brought her here, she said softly. A real celestial. I thought we would learn from her, share knowledge. But then the military took over. They said Earth needed weapons to defend against a celestial invasion. Is there going to be an invasion? Hejun asked. Dr. Jae-yun shook her head. No, the Celestials are peaceful. They came to share their technology with us. But some people in power don't trust them. They want weapons, just in case. They're killing her, Hejun said. And when they're done, they'll probably try to catch more Celestials. Dr. Jae-yun was quiet for a long time. Then she opened her bag and took out a security card. Level 6 access, she said. It will open any door in the facility. But if you're caught... I know, Hejun said. Will you help us? Yes, she whispered. I'll disable the security cameras at midnight. But Captain Tawon is suspicious already. He's ordered extra guards for tonight. Just then, Hejun's phone buzzed. It was a message from the facility's security system. All maintenance STFF REPOR TFR immediate is SECURITYSTCURENING. Dr. Jae-yun grabbed his arm. They know. Captain Tawon must have seen something on the cameras. You can't go back in there. I have to, Hejun said. Lyra has maybe 2 days left, and now they'll watch the facility even closer. You'll need a distraction, Dr. Jae-yun said. She took out her phone and made a call. Hello. Yes, this is Dr. Jae-yun. We need to move the subject to the main lab immediately. Captain's orders. Yes, all security personnel should report to Section C for briefing. She looked at Hejun. That will pull most of the guards away from Lyra's section, but you'll only have maybe 20 minutes. Hejun nodded. That's enough time. But what about you? They'll know you helped. I'll say you stole my security card, she said. I've already sent copies of everything to 3 different news stations. If anything happens to me, the truth comes out. As they got out of the car, Dr. Jae-yun grabbed Hejun's hand. Save her, she said. Show them that not all humans are monsters. Hejun walked toward the facility entrance, his heart pounding. In his pocket, Dr. Jai-yun's security card felt like it weighed 100 pounds. Tonight would change everything. He just hoped they would all live to see tomorrow. At exactly midnight, Hejun swiped Dr. Jai-yun's security card at the service entrance. The door opened silently. Inside, the halls were nearly empty. Dr. Jai-yun's fake order had worked. Most of the guards were gathered in Section C, waiting for a prisoner transfer that would never happen. Hejun moved quickly through the halls he knew so well. 15 years of fixing things in this building had taught him every shortcut. He reached Lyra's room in less than 5 minutes. The security panel glowed red beside her door. He took a deep breath and swiped the card. The light turned green. Lyra floated in the middle of the room, surrounded by machines. Her glow was so weak now that Hejun could barely see her. When the door opened, she turned toward him, her silver eyes wide with hope. "Time to go," Hejun whispered. He started pulling tubes and wires away from her body. Each one made a soft hissing sound as it came loose. Lyra's light grew a tiny bit brighter with each connection he broke. Suddenly, alarms started blaring through the facility. Red emergency lights flashed in the hallway. Hejun worked faster, his hands shaking as he removed the last tubes. "Can you move?" he asked Lyra. She tried to float toward him but stumbled. Her light flickered like a dying bulb. Hejun caught her before she fell. She felt as light as a feather in his arms. "Hold on to me," he said. "I know another way out." He carried her into the hallway just as shouting voices echoed from around the corner. Heavy boots were running toward them. Hejun turned the other way and ran toward the maintenance tunnels. "Stop right there," Captain Tadawan's voice boomed behind them. "This is a direct order." Hejun didn't stop. He reached the maintenance tunnel entrance and pulled it open with one hand while holding Lyra with the other. The tunnel was dark and narrow, barely big enough for them to crawl through. "You first," he told Lyra, helping her into the tunnel. "Follow the red pipes. They lead outside." Gunshots rang out just as Hejun pulled himself into the tunnel. Bullets sparked off the metal wall behind him. He pulled the tunnel door shut and locked it from the inside. They crawled through the darkness. Hejun could hear Lyra breathing hard in front of him. Her weak glow lit the way just enough for them to see. Behind them, they could hear the sounds of people trying to break open the tunnel door. "Almost there," Hejun said. "Just a little further." They reached the exit panel that led to the parking lot. Hejun pushed it open and helped Lyra out. The night air was cool on their faces. Dr. Jai-yun was waiting in her car, engine running. But as they ran toward the car, bright lights suddenly flooded the parking lot. Military vehicles surrounded them. Captain Taiwan stepped out of one, holding a gun. "That's enough," he said. "The Celestial is government property. Hand her over, and maybe you'll only get life in prison." Hejun stood in front of Lyra. "She's not property. She's a person. She's a weapon," Captain Taiwan said. "A weapon we need." Lyra put her hand on Hejun's shoulder. Suddenly, her light began to grow brighter. Much brighter. Everyone had to shield their eyes. When Hejun could see again, he gasped. Above them, hovering in the night sky, was something that would change everything. John woke up the next morning feeling excited. Today was the day he would finally get to see the special place his grandfather had told him about. He quickly got dressed, ate some breakfast, and packed a small bag with water and snacks. As he walked out the door, his mother stopped him. "Where are you going so early?" she asked. "Just exploring," John replied, not wanting to reveal his secret quite yet. "I'll be back later today." His mother looked at him curiously, but didn't ask any more questions. "Okay, be careful and have fun," she said as John headed out. John walked quickly through the village, then turned onto the old dirt path leading into the forest. The sun filtered through the leaves, making pretty patterns on the ground. Birds chirped in the trees. John felt happy to be on an adventure. After walking for about an hour, John reached the old wooden bridge his grandfather had described. It crossed over a rushing stream. John carefully walked across, listening to the water bubble and splash on the rocks below. On the other side of the bridge, the path got narrower and more overgrown. John had to duck under low branches and step over fallen logs. Finally, he saw a small clearing up ahead. His heart beat faster as he realized this must be the spot. John entered the clearing and looked around in wonder. Wildflowers in yellow, white, and purple covered the ground. A majestic oak tree stood in the center, its branches reaching high into the sky. As John got closer, he noticed something glinting in the sunlight near the base of the tree. John kneeled down and brushed aside some leaves. There, mostly buried in the dirt, was an old metal box. He carefully pulled it out and brushed off the dirt. The box was locked, but John noticed a small key hanging from a chain on one of the lower branches. With shaking hands, John took the key and fitted it into the lock. It clicked open easily. John slowly lifted the lid, excited to discover what was inside his grandfather's secret box. That's the end of Part 7, written in simple English using the third-person point of view. The story continues to build anticipation about the mysterious box and what it might contain. I tried to use basic vocabulary and sentence structure while still making it interesting and descriptive. Let me know if you would like me to continue with Part 8 of the story. Inside the old metal box were 3 items: a yellowed envelope, a small wooden carving, and a tarnished silver compass. John picked up the envelope first and carefully opened it. Inside was a letter written in his grandfather's shaky handwriting. It read, "Dear John, if you are reading this, you have found my secret treasure box. These 3 items are my gift to you. The wooden carving is a little boat I made when I was about your age. Let it remind you to always stay curious and explore the world around you. The silver compass was given to me by my father. It helped guide me through many adventures. Now it is yours, to help you find your own way. Finally, the real treasure. This envelope contains a map to a very special place. I found it when I was a young man, and it brought me great joy and peace. I hope